Okay, that's the meeting now recording. So I will now take the sederant of the Risk and Audit Scrutiny Committee on Wednesday the 26th of January 2022. Councillor Brogan, I can see that you're present. I have apologies from Councillor Donnelly. I can see that we have present Councillor Ferguson and Councillor Halford. Councillor Lennon? No. I can see that we have Councillor Mars present. Councillor McLachlan, are you present? No. I can see that we have Councillor Nugent and Councillor Ward present. Also in attendance today, we have Councillor Ross. We also have a variety of officers in attendance today, as well as interpreters from British Sign Language. So with that, I will pass you back to the Chair to commence today's business. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Elizabeth Ann. Right, move on straight on to item 1, declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? Nope. Okay, we'll move on to item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. Is anybody any questions on the minutes of the last meeting? Nope. Okay, in that case, I move these to be accepted as a correct record. Can I have a seconder, please?
I can second.
Thanks, Jared.
Oh, wait,
okay. Oh, you were there, yes. I remember. Okay, if we move on to item 3. Item 3, we have the Leader of the Council here for this item, and we have apologies from the Chief Executive, but Paul stands in as his deputy. So we have Geraldine to speak to this report. Geraldine.
Thank you, Chair. This report commences on page 9 of the agenda papers. The purpose of the report is just generally to provide the committee with an update on the governance arrangements within the council, including the findings from the annual compliance check and the review of the code, and also to provide you with the Q2 update on the significant governance areas which were identified in the governance statement in 2021. So these are all in the report. As you know, the Council has a requirement to have governance arrangements in place, and the background to this is in section 3 of the report on page 9. And that sections 3.1 to 3.3 really sets out what the governance arrangements are. And these are based on the SIPFA code and on the work of Solace. Section 4 of the report provides the monitoring arrangements which are in place, and also the findings from the annual compliance of the check against the code, and this is set out in section 10 of the appendix. The council reviews the code annually and the compliance, and the findings of the review of the code and the checks are set out in the annual governance statement, which you're going to get, as you know, in June of this year. Appendix 1 of the report, which is in page 12 to 18, is lifted from the governance statement of 2021, and this sets out the various principles that sit behind the council's governance, and also all the evidence that shows the work that is being done within the council to fulfil those principles. This appendix also provides either hard evidence, so it'll be a link to policies and procedures, etc., which you can find in the council intranet, to committee reports, which you can find via the council's committee information systems, and also to other electronic documents that are available, such as the annual accounts. The significant governance area, I should go back to section 5, I jumped one, sorry. Section 5 of the report on page 10 also explains the evaluation of the annual review of governance arrangements and the annual review of the code that is carried out. The code is looked at again by lead officers in the Council's Good Governance group, and these lead officers are from all the resources of the Council and also include Yvonne Douglas, the Internal Auditor, Audit Manager, Jackie Taylor, the Head of Finance, and myself. We look through everything to make sure that it's still fit for purpose and update it as necessary. And section 5.2 of the report shows where the updates have been made. And these are mainly to Appendix 2, and these are shown on pages, sorry, I can get to my appendix number. Sorry, I don't have that noted down. I'll need to skip through and tell Councillor Ferguson so I can direct you to the correct page of the report. Right, section 2 of the code begins on page 31 to 33 of the report, and that is all the links to the evidence that is available to demonstrate the Council's governance arrangements. And I can assure committee that I've gone through all these links. I've made sure that they work myself. I've checked that it is the appropriate evidence that sits behind it, and we have updated them where necessary. So the things that we've updated are, like previously it would have had the annual accounts of 2020. I updated that to the annual accounts of 2021. Any change in policy, I have put a link to the new policy. I've put a link to the new Councillors' Code of Conduct. Now, I didn't need to do it at this stage, but I felt it was helpful because that went live, as you know, on the 7th of December. So I've added all of that into it, so it's the appropriate evidence that's behind it. All of this is available to the Council via the intranet and to the public via the website, and employees are made aware of the updated code through the Learn Online module that's available, but also on the governance pages of the website. If there is any major change, these would be communicated to employees through either a personnel and management bulletin and also through some toolbox talks to those employees who don't have access to the intranet. Now, if I take the Leader of the Council is present here today, and the Deputy Chief Executive, because they've got to hear your considerations on the updated local code, and also if there's any changes that need to be made, because they will be asked to sign it off, so that could then be published as the updated code. Appendix 3 of the report. Sorry, if I can get to Appendix 3. Appendix 3 of the report, which starts on page 35, that is the Q2 progress update on the 14 significant governance areas which were shown in last year's governance statement. And each resource was asked to provide a Q2 progress update for this committee, but they will also be monitoring it through their own resource monitoring arrangements and reporting to committee where necessary. So, for example, some of the things in this you will have already seen. Finance and Corporate will have had the procurement update. Education will have had the education update about the work on the schools. The area committees will be seeing the participatory budgeting updates coming through on the work that's being done. The financial challenges have been reported to both Finance and Corporate and to the Executive Committee, and also to all the resource committees through their financial monitoring reports that go there. The Integrated Joint Board meets as a separate entity, as you're aware, and they have their own reports to that. Housing and Technical Resources have fed into that so that their views are taken account of in the Strategic Commissioning Plan. And I can say that there was a report on the Strategic Commissioning Plan to the IJB yesterday. That was too late to put in to this report, but it is going forward. I have flagged at section 8. I thought it might be useful for you to know that, as you were aware, the Integrated Joint Board Health and Social Care. Now, this is shown on page 39. There had been an inspection activity during 2019-2020, which resulted in Care Inspectorate reports. As a result of the Care Inspectorate reports, improvement actions were being undertaken by social work resources, and a moratorium was put in place for new admissions to social care. I'm pleased to let the committee know that the moratorium was lifted for the Hamilton area on the 31st of August, and the 31st of August for Rutherglen area, and the 16th of November for the Hamilton area. So good progress has been made on that. Taking you back to the recommendations within the report, I am asking committee to note the findings from the annual compliance check, to approve the local code, the updated local code, and to note the Q2 progress. I'm happy to take questions, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Geraldine. Actually, that was a very thorough presentation of that report. I had a list of questions, and you've answered every single one of them.
Thank you.
One way or another as you went through. So I'm kind of loath to find a question to ask you now, because you've answered them all. So thank you for that. Any other questions from anybody else? It's quite a long paper. There's quite a lot in it, obviously.
No hands, Chair.
No? Well, you get off very well. You've done the work, so you deserve to get off very lightly, and you do. Can I move this report to approve this report? Can I have a seconder, please?
I can second that.
Thank you, Jared. I was worried for a minute there. Nobody was going to do it. Now, Councillor Ross, you're more than welcome to stay with us for the rest of the meeting if you like, but you're also welcome to leave. Thank you.
No, thanks very much, Chair. As usual, it's been a pleasure to attend the committee, and thanks for the warm welcome as usual. But no, I have other business to attend to, so with your leave, I'll take my leave now. Okay.
Okay. Thank you for coming.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Right, so we move on to agenda item 4, the internal audit plan. And this is the first of 3 papers that Yvonne is going to take us through. So Yvonne, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Chair. This is internal audit plan, as you mentioned, it's for 22-23. So this is just a programme of work that the internal audit team will complete from the 1st of April 22 through to the end of the financial year, which is March 2023. The committee will be familiar with getting these plans presented to them round about this time of the year. Last couple of years has looked a wee bit different because of the pandemic. We've gone with 2 6-monthly plans each year because it's been quite difficult to plan a full year in advance. But there is now an intention to try to return to a more normal pattern. And I think what you have in this paper is almost a kind of a movement towards that, maybe a hybrid version of what we have been working with, which is interim plans and a full annual plan. And I'll explain that just as I'm going through the paper. So in terms of the background in preparing the plan, we're required to comply with the public sector internal audit standards, and we have done that. Section 3 also sets out the reasons for the approach that I've just outlined there, and that is we've got a few challenges as an internal audit team this year. Normally we would bring this plan of work to the audit committee in the April, so that would allow us to close down one plan and then come with the next year's programme of work. Now, because of local government elections in May, this is our final opportunity to bring an audit plan to the committee. We've also got some other challenges which you'll see in the plan itself around the number of resources that we're committing to the Oracle Fusion project. At this point in time, we're still fairly early stages of this project, and we're still defining the internal audit role. So there's some assumptions in terms of what our input will be, and we just want to be clear as to what we need to do relates to Oracle Fusion before we commit the rest of the audit plan. So in terms of the paper, it takes you through what would be the kind of standard report that you would see with the audit plan. It attaches at Appendix 1, the Internal Audit Charter, and that starts on page 52. There are no changes to that, but just for ease of reference, we always include that with the Internal Audit Plan. The plan itself is set out in Appendix 2, and I've tried to split it across 3 broad areas of work to kind of reflect what I'm saying about this plan and what our early priorities are. So first and foremost, it's to complete our key year-end tasks. So that's linking into the work that Geraldine's just talked about in relation to the governance statement, and the internal audit part of that is to produce an annual report. Secondly, we've got a number of corporate tasks. So these are ongoing projects within the council that we contribute to, and they're also key priorities at the start of the financial year. And then whilst these are running, we've got the core programme of work, and that's the third section in the audit plan that's set out at Appendix 2. And in terms of the approach that I was just talking about there, you'll see that in terms of the plan itself. If I just take you to the last page, page 58, you'll see some lines there that have got quite a significant number of days on them. And if I can just highlight the last 4 lines, starting with investigative contingency, general contingency, resource plans, and also the work for our external audit client. These are the areas that we would like to do some more work on to scope out what we can do, but that's very much determined by the commitment that we need to make in terms of Oracle Fusion. So the report sets out this proposed approach, that this is an internal audit plan that takes us through to the end of June, that allows us to deliver our key tasks, but then allows us to come back to the first audit committee of the new council with some more detail on those lines. And what you'll see at that point is that those days broken down primarily to do work within council resources, and that will provide a more detailed programme of work which will then run through to the 31st of March. So at this point in time, what I'm asking the committee to do is to approve this proposed interim internal audit plan, and also the approach that's been taken this year, to have this programme of work that runs through to June, and to then come back to the new audit committee at that point in time and set out the further detail in relation to some of the lines within the plan. And that's all. Happy to take questions, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, do we have any questions, please? Jared.
Thanks, Chair. I'll just put my hand back down before I get to the letter. On Appendix 2, page 57, the Fusion, the support implementation of project, and it's 309 days expected of the total 1,303 expected audit days. Just to ask if it would be possible for this committee to receive updates on this, so we can have an overview of internal audit's involvement and what assurances will come from this work to inform the annual audit opinion, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's a significant number of days out of the total days that we have available. So what I'm going to do is at each of the routine activity reports, which is also an item on this agenda, I'm going to provide interim updates, so give the committee some idea of the number of days that have been spent, the work that's been completed, and also the output from us in relation to that. I'm viewing that the work that we have in Fusion has been quite positive, because usually what happens with internal audit is we audit and then retrospectively we make recommendations as to how things could be improved. The benefit of having that level of involvement at the outset is that we can help to develop the right internal audit, the right internal controls from the outset. We can also be involved in testing, so we get some assurance that the controls are actually working. So there's quite a significant value for us as well as a function being involved in this. And I'm pleased to be able to commit those number of days, and I think I'll be able to give the committee assurance as we go through this project as to the value of internal audit's role in all of this.
Okay, lovely.
Thank
and
you.
Grant, sorry, Garrett, you're happy with it. Grant, you've got a question.
Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Just elaborating to page 57 again. It mentions, obviously, fusion. It says the number of days of 309, which is a lot of days. We may have already covered this, but is this a one-off project, Lucan, or is this an ongoing thing? Because I believe that number is quite high. To me, that's quite a big thing. Is there enough resources, for example, to cover? So again, my question there is it continuing or is it a one-off thing? That's my question. And also, sorry, just to add in, what does the audit involve? What kind of stuff are they looking at there? I'm not quite clear in the procedure. Hopefully that's clear in the question there.
Yeah, I'll take the kind of various points and hopefully cover them. If I don't cover all your points, you can come back to me at the end and remind me. In terms of Fusion, it's the Oracle upgrade that's ongoing. So Oracle covers the Council's main financial systems and also human resource systems. So it's the Council's main system. So it's a significant piece of work. It won't end in April 2023, although we're looking to have it implemented by February 23. But it'll obviously, with any system implementation, it'll then run on. So I think you'll still see some work in the 23-24 audit plan around this. We do have the resources. We're given the opportunity through Oracle Fusion to backfill the time that we're going to commit to Fusion. So there isn't a loss to the internal audit programme of work, because I'll be given additional resources to backfill for the time that we spend on Fusion. And it really involves, it's like full project implementation that we're involved in. So we're involved in it at the very outset in determining what are the controls that need to be in the system, how data should be transferred across, down to some very detailed things around hierarchies, cost centres. We've really got quite an integral role in all of this. And as I've said in the presentation, I really think there's value in this, because a lot of audit sometimes is looking backwards and trying to correct things retrospectively. So it seems sensible to commit the resources now to get it right at the start, rather than to not have this level of involvement and then have audits and subsequent audit plans that basically make recommendations around corrections to the system. So I'm comfortable that I can still deliver a programme of work, that I can still write my annual report. And I think as a function, we're really pleased about getting the opportunity to be involved at the level we're involved at and to the extent, because I think that's going to produce a better outcome from the Council than for us not to have this involvement and then retrospectively to audit systems and make recommendations. I don't know if that covers, I think that covers the main points you were making, but if there's anything I've missed, you can let me know.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for your response there. I understand it's quite a new thing here as well. It's a new way of going through this procedure. So I think you're absolutely right. Being involved from the outset is going to make a big difference. Hopefully this will have a further positive impact on the long-term strategy. So I'm pleased to see that the setup is there. I was just questioning the number of days, but I understand that that's going to be an ongoing thing, and there might be changes over time. But thank you for your response.
Okay, lovely, thank you. So, any other questions?
No further hands,
Nope.
Chair.
Okay, in that case, can I move that we approve this report, and can I have a seconder, please?
Grant Ferguson, second.
Grant. Thank you, Grant. That's excellent. So, item number 5, internal audit activity as at 7th of January 2022, and as previously intimated, this is Yvonne again. So, thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you, Chair. This is the activity report, as stated at 3.1, takes you from the end of October through to the 7th of January. So just to give you a brief update in our current position, almost all of the audit plan is in progress, which is what you would expect by this time of the year. Around half of it is at draft report stage, with half still to take through to a conclusion. Again, that tends to be the normal pattern, and that most work is ongoing and we try to bring it to a conclusion in the last quarter of the year. Appendix 1, as we would normally do, that's on page 62, gives you our key performance indicators. That's just to give you some assurance that we're continuing to meet the targets that are set. And it means then when it appears in the annual report, you've been getting interim updates in terms of our progress, and there aren't any surprises in there for you. So there's nothing to report in terms of our performance indicators. We're meeting the targets set, and I'm comfortable with the overall progress that we're making with the internal audit plan. Again, as we would normally do in Appendix 2, we've set out the assignments that have been completed in the period, and that's on page 63 and 64. There aren't any significant pieces of work in there, so that's why you're not seeing any of the key messages pages attached. And instead, what we've done in the last column, which is headed assurance information, we've just tried to give you a brief summary of the output from the work. So you'll see we did some work for external clients, and then 5 advice and guidance type assignments, and that kind of varies. Some of that is around providing advice about controls, but you can see some of it's more practical around helping to develop spreadsheets. So there's a bit of a mix in there for us, and the other 5 are just routine type of assignments that would come to us and have been closed in the period. One other thing that this report covers in section 6 is Glasgow City Region City Dealing members will be aware of this programme of work from reports that go to other committees. And in section 6 here, we're just setting out internal audit arrangements, and we're just trying to tidy that up a wee bit, because in the December 21 Cabinet meeting, it was highlighted that there probably wasn't the level of scrutiny around these reports within member authorities, and instead they were presented to the Cabinet, which was had representation from all of the authorities on it, but what we weren't getting was the kind of detailed scrutiny within member authorities. So section 6 just sets out how we intend to address this moving forward. The plan is that I'll highlight to you when an audit report has been issued and presented to the Cabinet. And you'll see at 6.3 there's a hyperlink there. So that takes you to the latest one that's been prepared on business continuity and resilience. And sitting within that are a number of actions. Now, the actions tend to always be at a fairly high level and relate to the Project Management Office itself at a programme level. But sitting below that are further actions at member authority level. And to give our own audit committee a bit more of an overview and insight into all of this, what we will then do when we bring these reports and provide the link, we'll then specify what actions are relevant to South Lanarkshire Council. Now, you won't see that within the report itself. This is additional information that isn't public. And then as an internal audit team, what we'll do is we will record these audit actions and go through the same process if it was our own audit action. So we'll make sure there's a specific officer to implement the action. We'll agree a date, we'll log that, and we'll follow up. And I'll capture all of this within the activity reports as I bring them to you. So this is really just the start of the process. It's just setting out how we intend to do it. It's giving you a link to the first one, a note of the actions. Those actions at 6.3, we were waiting guidance coming out from the Project Management Office. That came out at the end of last year. So those actions can now be implemented, and I'm just in the process of agreeing a responsible person and a completion date. And I'll capture progress with those in further activity reports to this audit committee. So I think those are the key points, Chair. So in terms of the recommendations that are noted at 2.1, it is simply that you note the progress and performance. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Again, actually, excellent. I did have a question. You've sort of answered it, but I'm going to just sort of get some reassurance on it anyway. It's to do with the city deal, the Glasgow City deal that's being managed effectively by Glasgow Council, but we are a party to it. And I just wanted to ensure or find out what sort of audit actions will be implemented by South Lanarkshire Council that they'll be done, and how that will be reported back to us on our committee to get an assurance that all's been complied with there. So that wasn't very clear, was it?
I think I understand. What we'll do is, as I mentioned, we'll take the audit actions and we'll log them. What I'll also do is when we get to financial year end, we'll go back to council services and we'll actually look for some evidence so we can report on two levels. We can report, first of all, to our own audit committee as to whether we've been given assurance that the action has been implemented. And secondly, at financial year end, we'll actually go back and do some what we call formal follow-ups, actually just asking people for the evidence that the action has been completed. So we'll look at the one at 6.3, it's talking around a business continuity plan and getting some assurance around the kind of detail in that and the fact it specifically references Citadel. And also that it's been reviewed. So that'll be a simple task for somebody in my team to do come March. And I'll capture that information within my annual report and give you some comfort in terms of all these actions. The verbal update around completion has been included in the activity report, but when we get to the annual report, we've actually gone back and we've physically checked the recommendation. And I think that kind of completes the circle in terms of the audit, because Glasgow will follow up the actions at the project management office level, and then as a local authority we'll pick up any detailed actions that sit within our own authority. Does that answer your question for you?
Yes, it does really. Yes, it's just that obviously it's outside our immediate control, so I think we've sort of we have to be doubly sure that it's being done right, because it's being done partly in our name. So that's good, thank you. Any other questions, please?
No hands, Chair.
No hands. Okay, in that case, can I move that this report be noted, and can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second.
Thanks, Jared. Yeah. Okay, so we move on to item 6, and Yvonne's third and final paper for this entire council period as well, I believe. So there we are. Yvonne.
Thank you. It's a big build up there. This is the fraud statistics. So again, a familiar paper to members in terms of papers that we bring to this committee. And this one brings the figures to you for the period to 30 September 2021, and also includes a comparison to the same period in 2020. In terms of the main information, it sits within the tables, which start on page 66. I think 3.5 is just worth noting in context around progress. We are still being impacted by the pandemic, in particular in this period that's been reported to September 21. But the paragraph 3.5 is noting that despite the delays, we haven't changed our process and we haven't changed our approach or tolerance in terms of fraud. But what we are looking to do is try and re-establish more business as usual processes and attach to that more reasonable timescales. So members should start to see cases being closed more quickly than we have in the past. And if that takes us into table 1, which is the fraud caseload, so that just takes you through the numbers in terms of the cases that were open, reported and closed in the period. And as you can see from what I was just saying there, our cases closed in the period, whilst it's comparable to the same period in September 20, it's still relatively low. And I'm hoping that what you'll start to see with the fraud reports coming through now, that those numbers start to increase. So in terms of the cases closed in the period of 16, there's further detail in that in table 2 at 4.5, and that just gives you a breakdown when the cases were closed, what were the outcomes. And of those 16, we're highlighting that 10 were founded. 1, there was insufficient information to reach a conclusion, and there were 5 unfounded because despite having evidence, we were satisfied that there was no issue. So in terms of the 10 that were founded, that's then given further detail at 4.7, which is just on the top of page 67. And it gives you a breakdown of the founded allegations, and you'll see that all 10 are external, so it related to either benefit fraud or fraud committed by a third party. Just reflecting that point then around minimal progress, attached to minimal progress is obviously minimal cost, which is set out at 4.9. So there's not been a significant amount of internal audit time spent concluding this type of work in that period. But we are looking to try and return to more reasonable timescales, and certainly trying to look to conclude as much as we can by the end of the financial year. Aside from that, there are not really any other significant points in this work. There's some brief updates in terms of the number of days that have been committed, and the work that's ongoing within the Council's Serious and Organised Crime Working Group, and a commitment to bring that to the committee as there are updates in relation to that. So in terms of this report, Chair, I'm simply asking that you note the contents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And have we any questions? Jared.
Thanks, Chair. It was just to ask about the financial implications, Section 7, the NFI exercise. Just, I guess, an update on the conclusion of that, and if we're on target to close all investigations by the 31st of March.
NFI is part of the fraud work that we undertake. Back in September, we brought our report to the committee, which set out a target number of investigations. So there'll be update reports in relation to that coming to the new audit committee. Within that, we'd set ourselves a target of just short of 10,000 investigations, which was quite a significant number. Given the ongoing pressure on council services within the internal audit function, we undertook some work to try and reduce that, to really focus our attention and approach on really high risk matches, and we actually managed to reduce that to just over 3,500 for council services to then go and investigate. Now that includes single person discount, because single person discount matches actually go to an external contractor who reviews those for us. The latest update that I have is that we've concluded around 3,200, so just short of 90% of them have been completed. So there's no reason to doubt that we'll have completed all the investigations by the end of March. We speak to our external auditors when we change our approach. So when we changed the number of matches we were investigating, we spoke to the external auditor just to get assurance that they were comfortable with that approach, and they indicated that they were. We're in the process of collating outcomes in terms of the closed investigation, what the financial outcome of that was, and I'll include that in future reports to the committee as well. But in terms of the actual exercise, yeah, I'm comfortable that we'll conclude that by the end of March, and that our external auditors are happy with the approach that we've taken to conclude this exercise.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Have we any other questions?
No hands, Chair.
No. Okay, that's brilliant. In that case, can I move that that paper is noted, and can I have a seconder, please?
Mr. Grant.
Thank you. Okay, so in that case, we'll move on to item number 7, Performance and Review Scrutiny Forum Annual Update. And Tom Little has the honour of the last paper of the Risk and Scrutiny Audit Committee for this entire term of the Council. So Tom, over to you.
Duly honoured, Chair. Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Yeah, this is the annual report that we bring just to give members of this committee sight of the reports that have gone to the Scrutiny Forum. In this case, it covers calendar year 2021. It's a very straightforward report. You'll see all the details you need in the table at 4.1. You'll see that we took 11 reports to the 4 meetings, and the 3 categories there, they're lined under, are improvement, performance management, and best value. They were all duly scrutinised and approved, I'm pleased to say. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Okay, do we have any questions?
No hands,
No.
Chair.
Okay, well, as I say, that was you get a big build up for a really short paper that was very uncontroversial. So thank you, Tom. Okay, well, in that case, can I move that paper is noted, please, and can I have a seconder? Walter.
Yes,
Thank you, Walter. Okay, well, that move on then to item number 8, urgent business, and I have no urgent business to report, but just to thank you all for your good work over the last 5 years. Granted, I've only been on this committee for the last 3 meetings, but still, I'd like to thank you all for the work you've done over the 5 years. That goes for both the councillors attending and for all the officers who have contributed such good work all the way through the term. So thank you all, and maybe we'll see you again later in the year. Maybe not. We'll find out in May. Thank you very much. I'll bring the meeting to a close. Thank you.
Thanks to the officers and Eric. Thanks to you.
Thanks, Chair.